I'm really struck by that order, right? So for me, also business becomes last, but not in a sense that I should not focus on it, but to have the trust that whatever we do up front will in the end lead to a successful business, right? So business is the outcome, right?
Yeah.
Growth is the outcome. More EBIT, more revenue is a result of everything I do up front, right?
But first of all, family. That comes first, because what I do supports my family, and that is the first goal.
What are the root causes? I'm really diving into that people topic, right? Because if you say you're a PMO, you have one product, you have to deal with all these like various people from R&D, supply chain, production, and so on. What are the things you fight most about and for in these discussions with all those people? So welcome to yet another episode of our podcast Strategy Toolbox, where I today meet Daniel Melchert. I'm super curious what this discussion will lead us to, but before we dive in, Daniel, who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So first of all, thank you, Marcus, for the invitation. It's a pleasure having a discussion on this topic, and I think it's a pleasure also finding forums that actually talk about it, which is very good. So my name is Daniel. I was born and raised in Brazil. I live in Switzerland for the past 15 years. I'm also a Swiss citizen as well. I have a weird professional trajectory. I think it's a good, it gives me an edge on a few things. I have a bachelor in tourism, which has nothing to do with what I do today. But through that, I managed to get into expedition, logistics, supply chain, and that was kind of my world for around 20 years. And through all that, I managed to get involved into Lean Six Sigma and projects and different things regarding those tool sets that we have, which brought me into a pharmaceutical company, and I work on the strategy and business excellence organization for a few years. I think 5 years I've been here in this company, and it's a blast. I think there's a lot of things that we can work on strategy and execution that I like a lot.
Just name the company again.
So the company is Takeda Pharmaceuticals.
Takeda, awesome.
Yeah,
we had Daniel Ekpor in the show a couple of months ago. I think he's also the director of Operation Excellence at Takeda in Zurich. You might know him, I don't know. But yeah, so, I mean, from tourism into supply chain, yes, we move tourists around, right? So it's not so far. And then when I think about tourist streams getting stuck somewhere at a site, right? This goes into lean and process optimization. So there's a lot. You say it's a blast what you do right now. So what makes you stand up every morning and say, hey, let's get the next step in?
First of all, family. That comes first, because what I do supports my family, and that is the first goal. But what I do in the strategy and business excellence organization is quite interesting in the sense that we have difficult programs, so different medications that are manufactured, are supplied, and through their life cycle, there's a lot of different aspects that people have to manage, have to take good care of. And I work with a group of leaders in different areas like regulatory, operating business units, supply chain, quality, and so on and so forth, on making sure that the strategy for the program is well executed so that we have capacity in place, we have submissions in place, and we are able to deliver medications to the patients. And it's not a boring job to do because there's a lot going on in different markets, different political challenges around the world. So yeah, it's quite fun to do it.
Let me try to put this into a job title, right? Are you kind of a portfolio manager for business excellence, or what how would you describe this?
Yeah, so what I usually try to explain to people is, so the job title itself is within product operations, but is a program manager.
A program, okay.
A lot of people don't know what that means. So usually the way I try to simplify is I'm kind of the PMO, so the project manager officer for a product. And I work with a bunch of people and we bring them together and we look at things together from the different responsibility areas that they have, just to ensure that we do the day-to-day activities that deliver medication to patients.
What are the root causes? I'm really diving into that people topic, right? Because if you say you're a PMO, you have one product, you have to deal with all these various people from R&D, supply chain, production, and so on. What are the things you fight most about and for in these discussions with all those people?
Good. There's always a political aspect behind a lot of decisions, depending on the organization that you're dealing with, depending on the questions that you're dealing with. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have to face, and kind of find your way through the different hierarchical decision makers within whatever company you're in, and then just trying to present what makes sense, what adds value, and then how to tackle those decisions that impact. In Takeda, we have a very good way of doing it, and they have it's named PTRB. So it's patient, trust, reputation, and business. And it's always in that order. So we always make decisions following that order. The patience comes first, and the reputation, and then the trust, and then the business. So if you follow that guideline, and this is a very big thing, culturally big thing in Takeda, it helps you navigate those decisions and navigate the decision-making leadership that you have to engage with, because they will also have the same mindset, putting patients first.
It's nice. I love that you put business last.
Yeah, I like that as well.
At the same time, you talk about politics.
Yeah.
How does it fit?
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, you have to invest a lot more than you would like to ensure that you deliver. In some cases, you have to find, okay, what's the balance of investments, return of capital, and then how do you ensure that you have supply to the patients within that scope, within that framework? And I think is a very good way of doing business, because it helps you keep your focus on your patient.
Yeah, I'm really struck by that order, right? So for me, also business becomes last, but not in a sense that I should not focus on it, but to have the trust that whatever we do up front will in the end lead to a successful business, right? So business is the outcome, right?
Yeah.
Growth is the outcome. More EBIT, more revenue is a result of everything I do up front, right? And I see a lot of companies flipping that around. So the target is to get more revenue, to get more money, to get more market share. But by that, then like really making compromises.
It's a very big cultural aspect of Takeda, which I find it amazing. I never saw that in different scenarios, different companies that I worked for. So it's very interesting to be in that scenario. Yeah, exactly.
How did Takeda build that up?
Honestly,
if you know,
I don't. Takeda is a company of, I don't know, I might guess it wrong. People might be mad at me, but I think it's over 240 years old, coming from a traditional Japanese medicine and then growing to a global company. So there's a lot of traditional aspects behind on how the culture of the company was built, but I don't know the detail from that.
Then let's move that question into the now. How does Takeda maintain that this order sticks in place?
Every single level of the company builds that culture. It's built within the framework of everything we do as a company. And it leads the company as a whole on always using the PTRB within every decision that is made that affects the medications that go out to patients. The investments and everything, like there's different committees that will judge proposals of investments, of growth within programs, depending on different thresholds that go to different leadership levels. But the PTRB is always part on decision making, which is an interesting aspect to have if you're trying to, as you were saying, like if you want to grow your business, if you have a strategy to do that, how do you do it in a way that, first of all, puts your patients from a medication standpoint first, and then also looks into and then trust that people have in the name of the company, and then how that affects your business. And then you build structures around that to support that. And as I mentioned, every level of the company on the decisions that are made all go through that process.
Now let's try to move this into strategy or into the execution of strategy. Now we were focused on decision making, which is a huge part of strategy execution, even more so about saying no to certain things than to trying to say yes to everything. How would you describe how PTRB or this concept, like putting the patients first, is a version of having the customer focus always in mind, but you seem to have like systemized that. How does that show in the strategy itself?
Maybe let's give a few examples, because I have under my scope of responsibilities today, I have 5 different medications. So 3 are more on the gastro area, and 2 are for a very specific lung cancer that the medication is treated as a life-saving therapy. So you have that breakdown into what are life-saving and non-life-saving therapies, and then how do you tackle those brings a weight into the responsibility you have. Like I know that the products I have, there are from the oncology portfolio that have a very direct impact on patients. You look at it in a very different way to ensure that you comply with goals that the group of people made, commercial people made, market people made, strategy and execution, supply chain, the whole operation department. You look at that and then you execute it in a way that you just carry that weight. You carry that weight that it saves someone's life if they have that medication or not. And then you work with the team that you have in place, sometimes even, let's say, carrying more safety stock in different areas, because you might have a disruption on your chain. You might have issues that are geopolitical or not. You might have crises happening here and there, and then you imply that into how you actually protect that medication on going forward to patients. So then you tackle the execution part of it with that weight. So see it in a way that it just reflects how you treat your patients.
It's impressive, right? Thinking about every decision you said that's like really done on all the levels in the organization. And even when thinking about large strategic decisions, it's the patients first, right? Which then would also mean that you at some time would forego a certain market share or certain win, that like monetary win that you would get. Now Takeda is around, as you said, for like really long time, and it's moved from Japanese medicine to now based in Europe, based in Switzerland, based in Germany. There are sites as well, actually close where I live here, and it sounds all wonderful, right? But I'm sure not everything is as smooth as you tell it, right? So what are you working on to improve on that journey? And what would you say, what would need really to happen? Pick the level yourself, right? Maybe not on a cultural aspect, but what would need to happen for Takeda to really take that next step? Even though that works seamlessly right now, what would need to happen to like really boost that forward?
One of the things that I've seen, at least from my scope, and I've talked to a few people, I've talked to my leadership as well, is there's a challenge on today's market on either being fast or being agile. And we need to separate those, because sometimes being agile is not necessarily means that you are fast in delivering things. But sometimes we have to find ways of doing things better so that we are faster in delivering some things. Like we had examples of one-day approval on FDA submissions. Like there's so many things that were done in the background to support the pre-work, the pre-material that was drafted, and then the submissions, and then getting that from them, having submissions, having approvals, and then launching as fast as you could possibly do. So sometimes there's a lot of on-risk decisions that you have to make, either producing something on risk, waiting for a decision that needs to come, so that you kind of take one step ahead of what's going to happen. And then if you lose that, you lose it. But you make the decision to go on a risk mode to make sure that you can deliver faster. So there's a lot of challenges on how do we do things faster and better. So I have, at least on my view, there's a high need for proper business excellence to be made in processes we do, in tasks we do, within the operational, within the manufacturing, and how do we take that to the next level? So this is a big challenge that I see coming, and I think there's a lot of weight to it as well.
Yes, there is. For sure. Now, for me, coming out of the agile space a bit, for those who know me, they know, he's out of the agile space. You say fast or agile? Agile for me, please. Because I'm a little bit struggling with that concept, fast or agile. For me, that belongs together. But let's see where this goes. So what is agile for you, and where is agile not fast?
I'm not saying that is not fast.
Okay.
I'm saying that sometimes speed is a challenge, because you can do things in an agile way with an agile 2.0 or whatever methodology that people are looking into. We have a lot of that here as well, and it brings a lot of improvements. But I think it's it's a parallel effort that you not only apply the methodologies within Agile framework or Lean Six Sigma framework or whatever tools you might have in hand, but you also find ways not only to do things better, but to find opportunities to do things faster. And that might be in specific areas like submissions and the timelines, because some timelines usually are quite ridiculous, because they're so long and you have to wait for such a long time. And like you have to find ways on how to mitigate those before you even submit a market moving forward. So you have to break some barriers. And then there's a lot of speed that comes into place. Not only the agile part of it, doing it things right, doing certain methodologies or applying techniques that you do things on a different level, but you have to gain time as well. So I think it's a parallel discussion that may happen.
And interesting. So for me, agility means also being fast, only when you need to be, right? So for me, that's why I asked. But maybe I'm thinking agile in a more mature term, right? So when companies think about agility or agile, they see Scrum, they see Kanban, they see tools that only work on a team level. I think what you talk about is business excellence. My term would be business agility, to really be fluent in the selection of the tool that actually gets you the most outcome at the moment, right? And
that's a
this
good
could
point.
also mean that you, even in agile space, you have at one point command and control to be super fast. Right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
This would be the one-day FDA approval, for instance. You have one decider. There's no democracy, right? It's decision, risk-taking, and do it.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's the transcension of what's happening or what has been happening on the agile market in the past 1-2 decades, to really move from team level to this organizational agility, which also means, hey, sometimes you need Napoleon, right? So sometimes you need this one guy telling you this is the path forward, period. And then you can shift back into another mode to sustain or to transform when needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Apart from approvals, where does Takeda need to be faster?
I think this might be a topic that affects multiple companies, depending on the size you have as well, is how your matrix is built. Because sometimes there are gray areas between different organizations, and then you have to tackle those internally before you move forward. So I think this for sure is an area that needs to be looked at. Sometimes we have not only an upward hierarchy, but it spreads horizontally as well into different groups. And sometimes you have different groups named the same with somewhat similar responsibilities, but with different scopes. And sometimes you have to break some silos, to do things in a better way. So I think that this is a challenge that I would say big companies have to tackle. Smaller companies, I think, is more straightforward. I worked in companies that I had direct access to the CEO, and you can easily have a chat with that person depending on how the situation was. And then with bigger companies, it's a different thing to deal with.
So I hear there's a lot of also introspection and awareness of that the organization itself needs to transform and change and adapt. So it's not a given structure. So it needs to be as fluent as the markets we're operating in.
And Takeda just went on a big transformation process that moved a few pieces that I think helped going more and more in that direction, but I think it's still an ongoing theme to tackle those.
Daniel, wow, what a fantastic episode. I love it already. So we did, as a tourist expert, we went on a journey now. I'm really struck by PTRB. It's really this guiding North Star that everything else fails. This is the last decision point, right? Have we done this right? Are we putting the patients first? No. Okay, we have to redo it. So that's what I take away, is that strategy can also be guiding by principles or by guardrails or by by the essence of what we do. And in your case, it's putting the patients first. So sometimes we might not need all the PowerPoint slides, but if we have PTRB or the version for the right company at that moment, this could get a company much further than having a nice PowerPoint deck.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And it is a privilege working in such an environment, because you start taking that into your own self-awareness and decision-making process, because the culture starts to build within people. So that's a cool thing to have.
Culture starts to build in people. With that, we do the mic drop. Daniel, thanks again for your time. Thanks for the episode.
My pleasure, Marcus.
Take care.
You too. Goodbye.